And welcome into the Thursday edition of Robby and Rexrode, 102.5-106.3 The Game. We are live from our Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Robbie Stanley, that's me. Joe Rexrode, that's him. David Janes.
That's me.
Yes, that is Joe Rexrode. David Janes here with us. Nick Keyser remains on his honeymoon. I saw some pictures from the honeymoon yesterday. It looks like they're having a wonderful time out there.
Oh, good.
Yep.
Where were those on Insta, TikTok?
I believe Facebook is where I saw it.
Yeah,
Facebook.
That's where I saw it. Facebook.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like Facebook. Yeah.
What an old head he is.
Yeah, he is.
By the way, shout out to Nick's mom, and
Yes.
also shout out to G-Ma,
Yes.
Nick's
She
grandma.
listens to the show.
She does.
Yes, they both. So if they're listening here at 6:01, shout out. We had
Especially
fun.
with
we had fun hanging
Nick
out
gone.
with
If you're listening to us right now, shout out for sure.
you. Yeah, exactly.
Big shout out.
Yes, we know you're devoted.
Yes, very much so. We hope they're having a wonderful time up there.
We do.
I think he's coming back next week. I don't really know. Nobody told me.
I don't know what time, but he's going to be back, I think.
Okay.
So you've not been told you're working Monday?
Oh, no.
this?
That's a different person. I'm off next week.
Yeah.
Oh, you're off, so you don't care either way.
Yeah, I don't care.
David
I don't
does
care
not
about what
care.
whatever you guys do next week, I don't care.
Do you guys have a producer? Doesn't matter to me. Not doing
I don't
it.
care.
Does not
It's
matter.
not me. That's all I know.
Good for you.
Yeah, that is good for you. Good to know. I guess we need to figure that out. We got a lot to get into on the program here today. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports will be with us for his weekly visit coming up at 8 o'clock. So looking forward to that. We'll take your thoughts all show long, 615-737-1025, the best and worst things in sports, coming up at 6:45. So we'll take your best things and your worst things throughout the show as well. Titans back on the field yesterday at OTAs. Joe Rexrode, you were out there. I would assume bucket hat in hand. There was a nice video I saw with you with some nice sunglasses on yesterday. So really good stuff from you. A filmed video from you that I saw on Twitter yesterday that was beautiful as always, watching the offensive linemen go through their drills. What stood out to you yesterday overall at Titans OTA? And we got a lot of specific things to get into throughout the show. Some interesting comments yesterday.
Yeah, well, to your point there, so, Chris Harris just sends me these texts with, pictures of me. And it's like, hey, you figured out a way to not look, you put on sunglasses and I'm at least not looking as nasty and mean as I do when I stand behind Roman Yossi. But
Yeah.
I think I still look like a jerky Secret Service agent in that particular photo.
I kind of dig it.
Yeah, I did have the bucket hat. That was the interview, so I had taken the bucket hat off, but I had it on, don't worry. And I'll say, well, first of all, my day, I basically just watch the offensive line. I just stayed with the offensive line. It wasn't necessarily the plan, but I got over there, and it's just I did a little video there, but I was really just really fascinated by just everything they were doing over there, and just thought it was interesting. There just wasn't a lot going on. They did a little bit of 7-on-7, but they did a lot of half-speed stuff. They did some third down, but I mean, it was not one of those days where you're gonna get you didn't get like the good team stuff that might, which even that doesn't tell you much. But you might pretend it's football in your head. But I guess my big takeaway, like J.C. Latham would be my big takeaway, just in terms of we talked about like Latham and Sweat at the rookie camp, and it's like they're like the two huge kids with all the other little kids, they have the stripe on the helmet, they can't carry the ball. Now you're with the pros and the full complement. Not the full complement because some guys aren't there, but for the most part. And J.C. Latham just stands out. Just his everything, his size, his flexibility, his movement, power. I mean, he destroyed that sled one time. He and Skoronski both are figuring out those Callahan sleds. Like, if you are a little bit off, that sled starts just turning on you, And it's got to be so frustrating. Everybody's sitting there watching, and like if there's anything off at all, it'll stop or it'll start turning. I mean, these are not just regular like blocking sleds. They are like,
it's a devious machine.
Yes, I mean it's got to be just awful. And so both of those guys yesterday at different times, I think I got Skoronski on video, a pretty good one, got rolling straight ahead, exact right technique, and drove them. And then you can tell there's a little bit of like slam them down, like
Sure,
Olga,
that's led by the boss.
Bertha,
Yep.
Olga or Bertha, whichever one they are. But Latham just stands out to me, just in terms of everything, even like just his enthusiasm out there, his voice. You hear him out there. I mean, yeah, this is all you can do right now. He might get torched by pass rushers this fall, right? I mean, I don't know, but there's a lot to like about what you see from him. And, Brian Callahan had some, I thought, interesting comments on him too. So that was, and just watching the drills, I was watching with a former NFL offensive lineman who was helping me, was a very informative. I don't know. I think he works around here in town. He's a great guy. Played for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
Really good guy. We were talking offensive line technique. I know that Trevor Maddich has been out there. We just heard a clip from that before the show started. So he's been able to watch some of the Bill Callahan stuff. Again, it's like I don't think it's some magic show or anything like that, but the detail and his involvement is definitely noticeable. Like his involvement, because these offensive line coaches have assistants and stuff, and so they'll take some time off, things like that. Bill Callahan he's on every single thing, and not just with like the main guys, with some of the reserve guys too. It's pretty fun to watch.
No Tavondre Sweat out there yesterday, as you heard on Jared versus Joe yesterday. Some people concerned about that. Some people not concerned. Some people think maybe the overweight factor being a factor in an apparent injury for Tavondre Sweat. Who knows? I have no idea what's going on with Tavondre Sweat, but he wasn't out there again. Are we concerned about Tavondre Sweat at this point on May, as of yesterday, 29th, not being out there on the field?
No, I'm not. And, yeah, I'm sorry. That's why I lost Jared versus Joe. But, again, I'm not saying, there's no way. Apparently Caroline thought I was saying there was no way he got hurt because he's overweight. I mean, yeah, it could be a factor. Also, anyone can twist an ankle. Also, anyone can strain a shoulder. The skinniest person in the world can tear a knee, or obviously if you tear a knee, that would be a concern.
That would be a problem.
Strain a hamstring, right? It's to me, it's irresponsible to just assume, this is a weight-related injury. I mean, I don't know. I know that he was on the field last Monday, and I don't think it's a big concern. You'd like to see him ready to get back out there by next week, when there's I think they're going to have 3 days open, with actual mandatory minicamp next week. So at this point, no, I can't say that it's all that concerning. It's not great. You'd love to see everybody out there. There's a bunch of veterans who aren't out there right now either.
There are a bunch of veterans that aren't out there. I'm not – look, I don't typically concern myself with pretty much anything that goes on in May on the football field. I saw it again yesterday, like in the that initial wave, like that blast of like, okay, practice is over, so we can tweet video and we can tweet what we saw and all that stuff. So there was that took place yesterday, and then Titans fans and some Titans media reacting accordingly to that. And I was like, here we are again. Everybody just going nuts about practice. And not only practice, optional practice in May. Here we are again. This is continue to be the thing about the NFL that just boggles my mind the most, is how much attention we pay to actual practice in the National Football League.
In fact, I saw your tweet. That was good. It's always amazing to me the fascination with practices in the NFL. Yeah. Walk out of a Preds practice. This is Robbie's tweet. Well, Philip Forsberg shot one wide today. What does it mean?
Never once have I walked out of a Preds practice and be like, you know what? Saros didn't look very good today, so that probably means he's in trouble.
Yeah. I know, man. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, look, hey, I'm glad. I mean, I complain about this all the time, but we have new information to talk about on our show today. So I appreciate we're going to try to take from any of this stuff. Like, again, I just started the show talking about how impressed I am with J.C. Latham, who's running around in shorts, and he hits a blocking sled sometimes. Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm part of it too. I'm part of the problem.
We're starved for football. That's what I think it's what it ultimately boils down to.
True.
At the end of the day. LD from McMinnville on the text line. Can someone explain toxic positivity? That's what Jared is using to describe the Titans team culture. Toxic positivity. He did come out with the take yesterday that Brian Callahan very positive about things going on right now,
Too
even in
positive.
addition to Will Levis.
Yeah. Okay.
To which I'm like, what really do you expect him to say at this point? Like, Brian, what have you thought about what Calvin Ridley has brought to the table so far? A little slower than I thought.
Yeah.
Didn't show up in the greatest shape. If we had to play today, he probably couldn't play.
Not really enjoying his attitude.
Not really enjoying his attitude.
Really not appreciating the attitude. Yeah.
I watched the Matt LaFleur press conference yesterday, and the way he talked, the Packers are going 17-0. I just think that's part of what it is this time of year, man. Like there's a lot of positivity.
And different coaches are different ways.
Yeah.
I try to say this on. First of all, I didn't hear him say the term toxic positivity, but that is a hilarious term. That's a hilarious. It's perfect for Jared. Perfect. So I don't. I guess is he just talking about Callahan, or is he saying everybody? It's across the whole building is positive. What's wrong with these guys?
I don't know.
How could they possibly be positive? Now,
I will say there were some interesting comments yesterday.
Yeah,
we're going to get to.
There was some Sparky Anderson hyperbole out there for sure that we're going to get to, but I don't understand. I don't understand his problem with this. There's a few things on that. First of all, I said this on Jared vs. Joe. Separate Brian Callahan's conversation about Levis to me with just the general. Yeah, he's doing great. This guy. What about this guy? Yeah, he's doing great. I mean, separate those. The stuff he said about Levis is well beyond that.
Agreed.
Right? And as far as I don't know. Again, I think that one thing that you are getting from Brian Callahan is you're getting some detail on some things. Like he had a really good answer about like why he likes bigger centers yesterday.
Yeah.
At the end of the show. So I don't know.
He's Team Stillman, like anti Brewer.
Right. Jared should be Jared should be so excited about that. So yeah, that's to me, LD. That's also a symptom of what time of year we are. Well, not that Jared couldn't do that at any time of year, but especially this time of year. Toxic positivity. Good Lord.
I didn't hear that one. Interesting. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. We got a lot to get into on the Titans front today. We'll continue that discussion coming up next, including some, in my case, eyebrow-raising commentary from Arden Key yesterday as well. More on that coming up next. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Purchase your tickets now for the Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway, Friday, September 13th through Sunday, September 15th at MusicCityGP.com. As the racing station, 102.5 The Game has a special offer that's for a limited time. Use promo code GAME for a 20% discount now through June the 16th. Also, tomorrow, the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix will be at Mayday Brewery in Murfreesboro, and 102.9 The Buzz will have your chance to win tickets to the Music City Grand Prix as well. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. Taking your thoughts on the Titans, 615-737-1025. Joe, there were a few different comments made by Titans players yesterday that were pretty interesting that we're going to get to over the next 30 minutes or so here on the show. Let's start with Arden Key yesterday. So Arden Key was asked about Denard Wilson and the new defensive staff coming in, and in the middle of one of his answers started talking about how we don't move on until we fix everything that we're doing wrong. And that led to a follow-up by Paul Kuharsky and kind of an interesting exchange with Arden Key. Here's what Arden Key had to say yesterday on the practice field.
The intensity he got, the details, and we don't move on until everything is fixed. And the detail he got and the swag that he got and that he come in with every day, oh man, it's going to be exciting.
Did you move on before some details were fixed in the past?
Hell yeah. Yes, we moved on. If we messed up, we didn't fix it. And now this year, when we mess up, we don't move on until we fix it. So, yeah.
So that was Arden Key yesterday coming off the practice field. Some interesting reaction to that one after he made those comments. Basically saying, yeah, now with Denard Wilson and this coaching staff, we don't rest until every detail is fixed. And if we mess something up, we're not moving on until something gets fixed out there. And Kuharsky's follow-up question is like, well, did you move on before? And he's like, yeah, sure did. Moved on last year, just kept going.
We actually preferred mistakes.
Didn't fix anything at the end of last year.
The worse the mistake, the fewer reps we do of a play.
Obviously.
It's a great system.
So Titan Twitter got a hold of that one and was like, geez, Vrabel, Shane Bowen, no wonder they couldn't win a game last year. Didn't fix anything. What did you make of those comments from Arden Key?
This is so high on the pet peeve list. First of all, let me just take a shot at Zach, our buddy Zach at FWordsPod. He quote tweeted this Kuharsky video, and he says, "This explains a lot about the Titan defense having the same mistakes show up routinely throughout the season." The last coach was an idiot. The last coach was an idiot. The last GM was an idiot. The last whatever was an idiot. The new coach, the new GM, the new whatever is a genius. It's so true. Now, look, I think Denard Wilson seems great as a DC. I'm excited to see his defense. He seems like a really good coach. So I put stock into like Arden Key and other players talking about things he's doing.
Sure.
But yeah, man, the contrasting with like this idea that they just never fix mistakes. I mean, we were at practices like last year when they stopped and did things over and fixed mistakes. I don't know. I just Arden Key's enthusiasm is infectious, and he's very funny sometimes. I would not put too much into this.
By the time training camp rolls around, they're going. And Mike Vrabel last year, he had us practicing with a golf ball out there. Could you believe it? We didn't even touch a football in practice. Nothing happened football related in practice.
Yeah, it's so weird how Vrabel had us wearing volleyball shorts. At practice. I don't.
He brought in the Predators. We put on skates on the practice field. It was unbelievable.
Man. But hey, this is the time. That whenever you have a coaching change, these are the types of conversations that take place. Again, I'm very interested to see Denard Wilson's defense and how that plays out. And I think that there's definitely a lot of positive feedback from defensive players about him.
Yeah,
which I take seriously. But yeah, I wouldn't run with this too much.
Zach from Nashville has responded
on
our text
Zach.
line.
Let's
driven
go.
by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Wow. Taking what I said out of context, like Stillman, I see. Nice shot, Zach. But if a player is saying they aren't fixing mistakes in a season, and they did have the same mistakes show up during the season, then it stands to reason that this is true. This from Zach from Nashville.
Okay. It might also stand to reason that they weren't very good, but it could be. Maybe Shane Bowen was like, yeah, I'm just going to chew my tobacco. Just sit here and you guys figure it out. It could be.
Well, so somebody asked the question, was the question and answer open-ended enough that he could have referred to his time in Jacksonville? Did PK ask about in the past or last year?
Yeah, he was talking about his high school
in the past, but I think it's pretty easy to infer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That he was talking about the Titans last year.
His Pee Wee coach just let them run around with no structure at all. Yeah, he was talking about last year.
Yeah.
I just, I don't know. I don't even know that Arden Key necessarily was like trying to take a shot at the last half.
Yeah, I don't know.
But it's fine.
He did say, "Hell yeah,
hell yeah,
we didn't fix anything."
Hell yeah, the last coaches sucked.
That part was pretty funny. I was like, yeah, he was pretty emphatic about it. Like I felt like PK kind of gave him like an out there to be like, well, no, we certainly worked on some stuff last year. But did you move on from stuff last? Yeah, sure did. We didn't fix a thing last year.
Not a single mistake was ever addressed. And Zach has the film to prove it. Let's see, look at all these mistakes they keep doing over and over because they never talked about it with each other.
It's pretty funny. It's pretty good stuff. I mean, honestly, my first reaction, and this is just the cynic in me, my first reaction when I heard that from Arden Key, other than laughing because I thought it was pretty funny, was like, well, Arden Key, for about 65 to 70% of the season, like totally disappeared. So I would imagine any chance you can get to just like maybe shift away some blame from other people in the previous staff is no longer here, maybe you take that opportunity. Not saying that, Arden Key was like sinister about it or anything. I'm just saying that
I don't know that he was
a whole lot of impact going on from Arden Key last year.
Another actually interesting part of Arden Key talking that I don't want to do too much reading into things, but they were talking about pass rush. And he started to basically about how they can be better if they can be better this year rushing the passer. And he started to kind of answer, and he's like, "Yeah, never mind. Yeah, we're going to be better." But then this would be a lot better if I had the audio. This just came to my mind right now, so I apologize.
It seems to happen a lot.
Yeah, I know. But we probably have it, but I just right now thought of this answer. And then he started talking about how the back end's better.
Yeah.
So basically the whole interaction with him kind of smiling, saying, "Yeah, I'm not going to get into that." I think maybe could have been a little bit of the secondary sucked last year, and then this year it's going to be way better. Right. Again, that's me now, speculating, putting words in someone's mouth.
Art, did you think the secondary was terrible last year? Hell yeah. We just need a round table with Arden Key.
I mean, with Jeff Simmons last couple of years, there's definitely a lot of talking around that issue after games, like, hey, we're trying, and then look downfield, see what happens.
Speaking of Arden Key, we know last year in training camp, I mean, almost every day was like, wow, did you see Arden Key rushing the passer today? Looks pretty good out there. And then we ultimately figured out it's because he was going up against Andre Dillard every day. I'm sitting there watching the floor at his Packers press conference yesterday, and the question comes up because they've got Zach Tom hurt right now at right tackle.
Oh, boy.
And they were like, hey, so what do you think you got in Andre Dillard? And his answer is, well, he's a first-round pick for a reason, baby. The athleticism, everything you want in an offensive lineman, he's got. We just got to work on the technique a little bit. It's just like, oh, my God, LaFleur. Right. Do not put him on the field.
Can't play football, but he was a first-round pick, and he tests well.
So we had the Arden Key stuff yesterday. Every time I think about Arden Key, Andre Dillard comes to mind. And then there I am in the afternoon screaming at my television, no, Matt, be quiet, no, shut up. No, Andre Dillard.
Well, I'll tell you what. If Andre Dillard has to play for the Packers this year and he does well, then you better give LaFleur his LaFlowers.
If Andre Dillard has to play for the Packers this year and he does well, you'll never hear me say another bad word about Matt LaFleur ever.
Okay. It's been said on the record.
You'll never hear me do it.
It has been stated official. I think that's fair, too. I don't think you should.
It will be clipped.
737-1025
Thank you.
is our phone number. Speaking of comments from Titans players, there was one yesterday that I'm not sure is really doing anybody any good. We'll get into that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, David Janes here with you on this Thursday morning. We'll have the best and worst things in sports coming up at 6:45. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Some more interesting comments from Titans players coming off the field yesterday after practice. Calvin Ridley, who Brian Callahan said yesterday has been everything that they could have hoped for when they signed him to this point, which is good to see. Had some very interesting, encouraging, I guess, comments about Treylon Burks. A little bit of pump on the tires going on yesterday from Calvin Ridley on the Treylon Burks front. Here's what Ridley had to say about Burks coming off the practice field yesterday.
This dude is a freak. Like, seriously, bro, he's going to be a stud. There's no worries in him. You know, I mean, what I see, he's like Julio, A.J. Brown. He's like T.O. Dude that big, that fast, man. I mean, he's a stud, man. You don't got to worry about him. You just got to learn, slow the game down. He'll be all right.
So that was Ridley talking about Treylon Burks. Said, nothing to worry about there. He's going to be a stud. And then brought up Julio Jones, A.J. Brown, and Terrell Owens, which is a heck of a trio to be compared to if you're Treylon Burks. And look, I get what he's saying. The size, the speed, I think we would all agree Treylon Burks has good size to him. When he gets up into top gear, he can move, which is part of why he was a first-round pick, and the physical tools that he brings to the table are encouraging. Joe, I heard that yesterday, and my first reaction to it was I understand Calvin Ridley is trying to be really encouraging to his new teammate. I don't know that that's really helping anything. When you start to compare him to T.O., A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones, I understand trying to pump your teammates' tires a little bit. I don't know that in the situation that Treylon Burks finds himself in right now, whether or not that's completely helpful to start comparing him to those guys.
I guess this could go into like our arguments before about comparison, or stylistic comparison.
Yeah.
Stylistic comparison, yeah, okay. But, yeah, the first reaction for me was like, oh, good Lord. Hey, the good thing is for Burks, it's been years of trying to get away from the A.J. Brown comparisons, and
just got brought back.
Now it's just one of the players. He just is part of the trio, the triumvirate of
Julio,
the Treylon triumvirate.
A.J. and Terrell Owens.
Yeah. I mean, look, again, Calvin really is just trying to – I mean, I think, he's trying to say something positive about Burks. But, yeah, all of the – I mean, honestly, it's just an interesting situation with Burks because there's just a lot of questions that continue to be asked about Burks. Like, I don't ask them.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming anybody who's asking them, okay? That's fine. Ask the questions. But there is so much conversation around a fourth or fifth receiver.
Yeah.
Yes, first-round pick also, so that's going to come with the territory for sure. But it's an inordinate amount of conversation around Treylon Burks at this point, given like all the other things that are actually more important on the football team. But the questions keep coming, and the answers keep being awfully interesting, if nothing else.
Yeah. Clearly, whatever he's done this offseason, like being around his teammates, they clearly love him, right? Like DeAndre Hopkins, last week talked about Treylon Burks and said, Treylon Burks is a grown man. I don't have to speak for Treylon Burks, but Treylon's going to be fine. And then Ridley kind of took it to a different level yesterday of, I ain't worried about him. He's going to be a stud. Don't worry about him. T.O., A.J. Brown, Julio, don't worry about that. Like, clearly, they feel good about the physical tools that he brings to the table, which is great. But I always go back to this. Like, the Titans' actions and what they've done this offseason tell me more about what they think about Treylon Burks than anything else, right?
Exactly.
Like, their actions tell you that they don't really trust Treylon Burks. And I don't blame them. Like, I wouldn't trust Treylon Burks either. Not to say that he can't go out there and hopefully stay healthy this year. And if he does, maybe he can carve out a nice little role for himself on this team. But if there was a ton of belief in Treylon Burks, they're probably not going out and signing both Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd to take away snaps from him. But that's what they did. So I can't get away from that part of it in the conversation. It's good. I'm glad his teammates are pumping his tires, and I'm glad that he's making good impressions and doing everything that he's supposed to do. But the Titans' actions tell me the story here. Like, if all things are kind of equal right now and nobody suffers an injury, he's not going to play that much. Like, that's what it is. He's just not going to be on the field all that much.
Now, I will say, as it relates to the topic we're going to get into at 7 o'clock, there is a bigger picture beyond this season that it's important. It's potentially important, and to me, why it's one of a few reasons why I totally dismiss the idea of them moving Burks. Because, look, there is still talent there, and there is the hope/need for him to figure it out this year for next year. Things could look a lot different next year. Now, at this point, based on what I've seen, would I be confident in that? No. Would I dismiss it as a possibility? No, and I think that's probably where they are too.
Yeah.
So for this year, they've done what they've done. But remember, Hopkins is just signed for this year, which, again, we're going to get into that later.
Yep.
And so, this could turn into, in the vision of Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan, okay, so this is the year we fix Traylon Burks, so to speak. He gets some reps. He gets 20 snaps a game. He makes some plays. Someone's going to get hurt too. And then next year, it's Burks and Ridley. That could be the hopeful plan.
It could be. Now, my response to that would be, okay, let's say it plays out that way, and Traylon Burks plays in a fourth receiver role and excels in that role and ends up having a nice year. First off, what is a nice year for a fourth receiver? And if he does that, how do you translate what that means and then saying, okay, now we're going to elevate him to a number 2? Like, how do you factor in what that looks like? Because to me, if Ridley and Hopkins and Boyd are getting the lion's share of the snaps this year, even if Burks does really well in the fourth receiver role, my question still is going to be, well, okay, that's good, but can he be the number 2 behind Ridley?
Yeah. Some of that answer is daily stuff we don't see, right?
Yeah.
Some of the answer is, he does have all the answers in the film room. And when he does get – and that's hard. It's hard to have limited opportunities and do great with them. If you do, I think that's how players do get elevated to higher roles, right? So, I don't know.
There are also players in the league that get elevated to higher roles and they can't handle the higher roles, and they're meant to be a third or fourth guy, and that's the role they excel in.
Yeah, they could. Yeah, I think there's, obviously it's finding out about a lot of players this year, including him. But I do there's some level of truth in all this ridiculous hyperbole in terms of the talent, right? So, I don't dismiss that. They see him and say, okay. Even in the Ridley comment, of course we're going to focus on the 3 comparisons. He said he just needs to slow the game down a little bit. So even he sees it's still, he's not all, because if you got to slow the game down a little bit, that means that you're not, going out there, snap your fingers, ready to play and produce at the NFL level, right? Can they get him there? I don't know, but I do think that he could potentially prove himself worthy of a higher role next year, and it would probably also be in tandem with drafting another receiver too. And he could be part of the solution, but yes, this small part of the solution this year is getting so much conversation.
A lot of conversation, a lot of attention. I'll say though, if he's the hybrid of A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, and T.O., they probably need to find a way to get him on the field a little bit more. Probably be prudent to do that.
Yeah.
If that's what he ends up being.
Yeah, I guess I blame Brian Callahan if he doesn't have 1,800 yards receiving this year.
Brian,
what are you doing?
What's going on out there? I heard those comments from Ridley yesterday. You know how there's all this stuff from AI going on right now? Somebody has made AI of Connor McDavid after every Edmonton game, just trashing his teammates, and there are people running with it thinking it's a real thing.
Oh God!
When
really?
I heard the Calvin Ridley stuff yesterday, I was like, "Is that real?"
That's
You say that?
An AI creation, okay. Kaharski. Look at my new AI device.
615-737-1025. Oh man, good stuff. Coming up next, it's time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
The best and worst of the sports week, now on Robby and Rexrode.
On ESPN.
102.5 The Game and the Game Nashville app.
This is the worst.
You look like you're feeling sorry for yourself. Believe in miracles? Yes! Unbelievable.
He's one of one. He is him.
This is a Coke bottle, it's not a crystal ball.
When I woke up this morning, I was feeling pretty dangerous.
Okay, let's go.
It is that time of the week, time for the best and worst things in sports. We'll take your best things, your worst things on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, kick us off with your best and worst things in sports.
Well, my best is Vols baseball. You know, they go down to Hoover. They've won the SEC. They want to share the SEC along with Kentucky. Apparently, Kentucky really celebrated that SEC title.
Apparently so.
The Vols got to share that too, and then the Vols lose to Vanderbilt, and it's like, okay, head on home. And instead, they just decide to go ahead and win the SEC tournament, and they're the number one overall seed for the second time in 3 years. And I think maybe there's a little bit of taking things for granted with them. I mean, you're talking about, again, number one seed 2 out of 3 years, SEC championships rolling in. They're going for Omaha for the third time in 4 years this season, and this is a program that has not done things like this. It's a monster.
They also have the number one recruiting class in the country coming in.
And there you go. So it's awfully impressive what Tony Vitello has done, and they deserve before, here we go, the NCAA tournament. It's going to be interesting, especially if they get to the Supers against Wake Forest and a super loaded team with Chase Burns. But right now, you have to be awfully impressed with them. What a performance by them in Hoover and just overall. My worst is Bill Walton, losing Bill Walton. I mean, I guess you could make it sort of a best this week. Some of the stories. I mean, I've read I read an old Sports Illustrated story from the 70s on him, and he was in Portland and he was hurt and the Portland fans were mad at him. But just so many stories have come out. If you haven't seen the Mike Breen story about Bill Walton and his dad, I would seek that out. He said that he told this story on ESPN. It's really an amazing story. Just really like a model. I mean, I probably agree with a lot of how Bill Walton looks at the world, except I can be a jerk about it, and he wasn't. And so I think that's a good model for people to kind of follow what he was. He gave himself to people, so it sucks that we lost him.
David James, your best and worst things in the world of sports.
So first off, I want to get a quick shout out to Eagleville. So for those who don't know, Eagleville is a small town outside of Murfreesboro. They just won their third consecutive state title in baseball.
Yep.
Last week, they scored a combined total of 54 runs, I believe, and only gave up 4 in the state title game.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad.
Not in the state title game, but in the state tournament.
In the tournament.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
So that's pretty good. And also, but the best for me actually this week is the St. Louis Cardinals. They're on a hot streak ever since Ollie Marlowe got ejected, and then obviously when Lars Nootbaar also got ejected. So the Cardinals, they are on the rise, but they're only 500 right now. But it's something for Cardinals fans to finally be happy about. And then the worst is Ronald Acuna Jr. getting his ACL.
Yep.
That's just
sucks.
it
That's
sucks.
awful.
He's an incredible baseball player, and he's awesome. He's just awesome for the sport, and it just sucks that he's now out again. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
Second torn ACL for Ronald Acuna. That was as soon as he went down. Like I saw because you didn't know at first, like that it was definitely a torn ACL, but I saw the video clip and I was like, yeah, that's not good.
I think it's the other knee too. So
Yeah,
that's even worse.
It's not good. Not good. My best thing in sports, the conference finals in the NHL are awesome. Florida, New York has been incredible. A lot of overtime games in this series. That series is tied 2-2. I thought last night, Joe, that we were getting ready to be on the way towards the Western Conference one wrapping up. Dallas scored basically immediately in the game, 58 seconds in. Then they got another one early in the first period. It was 2-0. They were already up 2-1 in the series, and I thought, man, they might be ready to just run Edmonton right out of the building here. And Edmonton, to their credit, responded really well. They turned it on. They scored 2 to even things up in the first period, and then they just basically took over after that. So you have both conference finals in the National Hockey League evened up at 2-2. I think there's a good chance at least one of them is going to 7 games. There's a decent chance both of them are going to 7 games. And I said it heading into both of these series that it's got a chance to be a pretty darn good conference final. And so far, it has lived up to the billing. It's been great.
It's been fantastic. I don't tweet that much, but I almost tweeted when it was 2-0 up, 5-game sweep, because it's like I've just thought that like Dallas is just so much better than them. But here we go.
They turned it on.
What Edmonton did in flipping that game last night, a little bit of a, dare I say, a little bit of a heart of the champion type stuff going on there. So no, these series, hopefully they both go 7, and I could believe any scenario of either team winning in 6 too, winning the next 2. I mean, it's completely up in the air. Fantastic stuff.
My worst thing in sports, I won't get too much into it right now because I've got more to say on it a little bit later, but the Scotty Scheffler stuff and the way that was handled, and then a police statement yesterday that was given by Detective Gillis of the Louisville Police Department was very interesting. We'll get into that a little bit later in the show. I mean, I guess that's sports because it's Scotty Scheffler.
Sports world. Yeah.
It was very interesting. David in Arkansas on the text line. The best thing in sports, Angel Hernandez no longer an umpire. He was the Jerome Boger of the MLB, if not worse.
There's a few Angel Hernandez shout-outs there. Yeah.
That was darn near universal. Like, you can't get people to agree on much in today's climate on anything. when Angel Hernandez retired, like the entire baseball community was like, "Yay, great!
Praise
He's not
him,
there
praise him."
anymore. All right."
I thought he retired last year.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's pretty widely celebrated.
It was.
Yeah, some of the, sure, on a daily basis he was fine.
Yeah.
But man, some of the stuff he got into when he got into it with people, and then the calls he made as a result of that, like you can't do that.
It was
horrible.
They have put together like I guess a low light tape is what you want to call it of like his worst calls / interactions over the years. And I will say, look, everybody, if you're an umpire long enough, you're going to make some pretty bad calls, and you're probably going to get into it with some managers and players out there. His low light tape is pretty special.
Oh.
Like there's some doozies on there,
Something
including
else.
behind the plate. Like I've got some patience with you if you miss a few that are like kind of on the edge, like on the corner there. There are some that are just about belt high right down the middle. It's like how can you be a Major League Baseball umpire and not call that a strike? It's unbelievable.
Well,
Or they're down to the dirts, and it's a strike.
Yeah.
Yeah, the robots are taking over soon.
They are.
Keith from Bowling Green points out, how many games have the Oilers played in the playoffs? Do you know off the top of your head?
I don't. I can add it up real quick.
Probably about 14, 15.
In that
maybe.
neighborhood, yeah.
Yeah, Connor McDavid has 24 assists. I know he had 3 last night.
Yeah.
Not scoring goals at a high rate, but that's driving some offense.
I know Draisaitl had 25 points in his first 13 games. He had a 13-game point streak to open up the playoffs. 25 points. I mean, those two. They're flashing up graphics like after every game. It's like quickest to 100 points in playoff history, and it's like Gretzky, Lemieux, Draisaitl, McDavid. It's like geez, the company those two are putting themselves in, and to this point, there's nothing to show for it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. So Gretzky and Lemieux have names on cups too.
Right.
So not that it was just instant for Lemieux,
Right?
But yeah, that's next, and maybe that's this year.
Maybe so. I thought they were done last night, but they got back in it. Another texter says, best thing in sports, Minnesota winning the inaugural PWHL Walter Cup. That took place last night, so congratulations to them. Worst in sports, NASCAR pulling the plug on the Coca-Cola 600 when the track was dry, robbed us of the opportunity to see Kyle Larson compete in the Indianapolis 500 Coca-Cola 600 double. My grandfather was upset about that the other night.
Is that right?
Pulling it. The track was dry. Like, get out there. Go race.
That's a good worst.
Apparently, we learned this week, Joe, Ferrari. Got to watch out for Ferrari in F1.
Ferrari
But apparently they did good this week. So
okay, they're
we
responding.
learned a lot about the racing community this week on the program.
Someone says Will Levis got Titans trending on Twitter. I'm not going to even ask what you're referring to.
No,
there.
I'm not either. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. Coming up next, speaking of the Titans, we will get into the DeAndre Hopkins part of this. He was not there yesterday in OTAs, and people have brought up his social media and potential scrubbing of all things Titans related as well. Should we be concerned that maybe DeAndre Hopkins is unhappy heading into the season? We'll get into that. Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. Hour number 2, Robby and Rexrode, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, David James here with you on this Thursday morning. We'll have Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports coming up at 8 o'clock, as we do each and every week. He joins us for his weekly visit. We'll get into all things Titans and the NFL with him. Very active YouTube chat this morning, very active text line. It's a very good time right now for Robby and Rexrode. Very good time for our station, and we appreciate everybody weighing in and the participation. Lots of good stuff going on right now, so we appreciate our participation. People in the YouTube chat calling for more Rexrode Kuharski impersonating. Howard on YouTube says, I actually think Rexrode sounds exactly like Kuharski when he's impersonating him. It's AI worthy. This is from Howard on YouTube.
I'm really not going for that. I'm going for more like Jerky Boys. I've got warts all over, But thanks. It changes, and I can't just do it on demand.
It does change,
yeah, it's just
which is maybe the best part about it.
Right,
it changes.
You just never know.
Constantly.
It's like a pitcher. Yeah, like here comes the slider. Here I got a little knuckle curve.
I still think the sweet spot is like the Joe Pesci kind of.
Right.
It's kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah, but you can't do it too much.
No,
right.
Like there's an art to it.
Gotta sprinkle it in there. Sprinkle it in. We also have Stilly to
make
fun of and impersonate. So
one day, maybe Stilly and Paulie together. Who knows?
It's
still a dream.
It is the dream. The dream lives.
615-737-1025 is our phone number. Keep your thoughts coming on the YouTube chat. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you're watching the YouTube chat, and I apologize I'm not. Like when we had the text line down, I was, and it was good. Yeah. It's good, like real time chat. I just can't. It's too much, man. It's too much for me. So it's overstimulation. So I'm glad that you are able to keep track of all of it.
So on the DeAndre Hopkins front, Hopkins was not at OTAs yesterday. Quite frankly, that on the surface, I could not care less about. Like if DeAndre Hopkins doesn't want to show up to OTAs, okay. Like I'm not worried about DeAndre Hopkins. Now, having said that, we did have people on our text line last week pointing out that apparently he scrubbed all things Titans related on his Instagram. Now, in just full transparency, I have not been heavily monitoring DeAndre Hopkins' social media accounts and have not been combing through his Instagram for the last few months.
Good. I feel better about you.
So I have no idea how much Titan stuff DeAndre Hopkins had on his Instagram to begin with. I don't know if it was like 15 pictures. I don't know if it was one. I don't know. But apparently, according to all of you, he has scrapped some Titan stuff from the social media. So when you factor those two things together, that apparently some Titans photos are now gone from social media, and he's not at OTAs after he was there last week, what do you think it means? Do you sense that there could be some frustration from there, from Hopkins' point of view, on maybe his contractual situation? And I guess the final question to that is, if you're Rand Carthon and the Tennessee Titans, do you think it's the right move to explore extending DeAndre Hopkins and his contract before the season begins? What's your read on all this?
Before I get to that, Zach in Nashville, football and other F words, although he believes that Arden Key just cracked the code and diagnosed all of last year's defensive ills in one fell swoop, this does seem to be a useful post from Zach on the text line driven by WilsonCountyHoney.com.
That's good.
He says, for what it's worth, D-Hop has never had Titan stuff on his Instagram. It's mostly been modeling pics and non-football things. Also, in the mic'd up video of Brian Callahan, which I have not seen, which this is Zach talking, which I believe a member of the social media team said was from Tuesday's practice, D-Hop was all up in it, so it seems he just wasn't out on the field yesterday.
So this may be a giant nothing burger.
This may be. So if what Zach said is true, though he believes that Arden Key has just given us all the answers to the Shane Bowen era as defensive coordinator, then this is a big nothing burger. Now, I will say, if it wasn't a big nothing burger, I wouldn't blame DeAndre Hopkins. Look, you just totally overperformed for what you were paid for last year.
Correct.
And I think,
especially in today's wide receiver climate. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Some of these guys getting paid, compare what he made to some of these guys and what they're getting paid. It's ridiculous. Now, look, a year ago, I had my misgivings about them going after him. I thought there were a lot of red flags, a lot more red flags to me than there were about Julio Jones coming in here, but he came in and he got it done. He performed at a high level. He had to basically deal with the 1-year prove-it situation last year. He dealt with it. He got the best deal he could, and it still wasn't a great deal. But, yeah, the Titans, I mean, maybe that's just like, hey, 1 more year, we signed you for 2, thanks, and see you later. But I would not blame him for saying, man, I need an extension. I need to at least be paid in the top 25, 30 of receivers
15,
in the
20,
league.
yeah, something like that. Yeah,
I mean, it should be higher. Except, there's still obviously
there's the age factor
matters,
yeah,
and the injury history is still there.
Right.
But the performance was tremendous, especially given the banged up veteran quarterback giving way to the rookie quarterback. Neither of them able to set up and throw, and nobody else doing anything to take defense away from you.
Right.
I mean, it really is.
In some ways, it was kind of
doesn't-
spectacular what he did last year.
Yeah, it really, he doesn't get enough credit probably for what he did last year. So if he were upset or making a little statement about how he'd like an extension, I wouldn't blame him at all.
So let's take him out of it and how he feels out of it. Obviously, when it comes down to negotiations, you can't take him out of it. But let's just go strictly from the Titans' point of view. We just talked about it with Treylon Burks. Like next year, you got Calvin Ridley under contract. You got a decision to make on Burks. There's nobody that's really a young receiver for you right now that's forcing their way into the conversation. So if you're the Titans, does it make sense to go ahead and extend him heading into this year? He's 31. He will be 32, I believe. Let's see here. When is his birthday? June the 6th. So like next week, he'll be 32 years old. So, I mean, obviously he's not a spring chicken. Now 32, you could still make the argument he's got a couple good years left in the league, especially given the way that he plays. And that's – I feel a little bit better as long as like there's no catastrophic injury. I feel better about his game kind of aging as he gets older here just because of the way he plays. Like he's never been – we've talked about this. He's never been a burner, like a guy that's overly reliant on speed. He's a craftsman. Like he's really good at route running. He's really good at finding little ways to create separation. And what he's really, really good at is even when there's not separation, he'll go up and get the ball and
he'll win.
He'll win. Right.
So
like you'll probably lose some of that as you get older, but I feel pretty good about him being able to still be a productive player as he ages here. So does it make sense from the Titans, given where they are right now with their receiver room, not just this year, but looking ahead with Boyd only on a 1-year deal, you've got Ridley, would it make sense from the Titans' standpoint to be proactive in this and go ahead and try to get it done?
I would advocate for that. I'm sure they'd love a crystal ball because it's like if this season goes well with Levis, you're competitive, you're in some level of playoff hunt, then why wouldn't you want to build on that? We just talked yesterday with Koharski about this next offseason then could be, okay, here's some of the other holes. You can't fill them all in this one offseason. There were so many with this roster. And you're going after it, and it's good to have Hopkins already lined up for next year. He deserves to be paid more. And, look, I thought there was obviously instant chemistry with Levis and Hopkins. I think there's respect there, and I think that's something that you want to continue. If they're going to be bad this year, then – obviously, I guess you might be overextended looking at that. And then another part of the equation here is, do you actually think